Then I did it again, and again, and again. I learned everything I could about real estate development, about zoning laws, about seeing potential where other people saw garbage. And I built an empire, Adrian, piece by piece, property by property, while you were growing up thinking your mother was just some boring woman who worked too much. Why didn't you tell me? His voice was quieter now, confused, because I watched what money did to people. I leaned forward. I watched your father's brother try to sue me for half the life insurance, claiming we'd promised to help him start a business. I watched my own sister stop talking to me when I refused to buy her a house. I watched friends turn into strangers the moment they thought I had something they wanted. I'm your son. I'm not... What is this? Information about your wife, gathered by a private investigator I hired last night. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. You investigated Selena? After she assaulted me at your wedding? Yes, I did. She didn't assault you. She was upset. You humiliated her by... By what? By existing? By having the audacity to show up to my own son's wedding? My voice stayed level, but something sharp crept into it. She threw hot food in my face, Adrian, in front of 300 people, and you stood there and watched. That landed. I could see it hit him, could see the guilt flash across his features before anger covered it again. You don't understand. Selena's had a hard life. Her family is worth $12 million. I tapped the folder. Her father owns a chain of luxury car dealerships across 3 states. Her mother comes from old money in Connecticut. Selena herself has a trust fund worth $2 million that she'll inherit when she turns 35. Adrian's mouth opened, closed. No. She told me they struggled, that she had to work her way through college, that she went to Yale on her parents' dime, never worked a day in her life until she took that marketing job where you met her, and even that was arranged by her father's college roommate, who owns the firm. You're lying. Read the report. I don't believe you. Then don't. I stood. But the bank statements don't lie. The property records don't lie. The paper trail doesn't lie. Your wife comes from money, Adrian. She's always had money. And yet she spent 2 years convincing you that you needed to provide everything, that you needed to prove yourself worthy of her. He was shaking his head, standing up, backing toward the door. This is insane. You're insane. You hired some investigator to dig up dirt on Selena because you can't stand that I chose her over you? I chose to protect you. I don't need your protection. The words echoed in my office, in my chest, in every empty space between us. Clearly, I said quietly, you don't. He stood there breathing hard, his hand on the doorknob, his whole body vibrating with rage and confusion and something that looked like grief. I don't even know who you are, he whispered. No, you don't. You never asked. He left, slammed the door so hard my coffee cup rattled, and I sat back down at my desk and did not cry. Because I'd cried enough. Because I'd spent 30 years crying quietly where he couldn't see. Because tears didn't build empires or protect sons or stop predators from circling. Rebecca knocked softly 5 minutes later. Are you all right? Fine. What's next on my schedule? You have a board meeting at 10, lunch with the Goldman team at 12:30, and a site visit in Brooklyn at 3. Perfect. And Rebecca, start documenting everything related to Selena Hart. Every interaction, every phone call, every piece of information that comes through. I want a complete record. She nodded slowly. She'd been with me long enough to know when to ask questions and when to just execute. The board meeting was exactly as tedious as I'd expected. 12 people talking in circles about quarterly projections and market analysis. I contributed when necessary and spent the rest of the time thinking about the look on Adrian's face when he'd walked out. My phone buzzed during a particularly boring presentation about zoning variances. Selena. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello, Selena? You vindictive bitch. Her voice was pure venom. No pretense now, no fake sweetness. What did you say to Adrian? I told him the truth. How novel. You're trying to ruin my marriage. Your marriage is 1 day old. If it's already ruined, I'd suggest looking inward. He won't talk to me. He won't even look at me. He just keeps reading that fucking folder you gave him and discovering that you lied to him about virtually everything? Yes, that does tend to create trust issues. I never lied. Selena. I kept my voice pleasant, professional. You told my son your family was poor when they're multimillionaires. You told him you worked your way through college when your father paid cash for your tuition. You convinced him to spend money he didn't have on a wedding you could have easily afforded yourself. That's called fraud, or in layman's terms, lying. Silence on the other end, then, "You have no idea what you've done." "Oh, I think I do. Adrian loves me. He'll get over this. He'll forgive me. Perhaps love makes people stupid that way. But he'll never forgive you." Her voice dropped lower, meaner. "He'll never forgive you for lying to him his entire life, for making him think you were poor while you were sitting on billions, for letting him struggle when one phone call from you could have fixed everything." That one hurt. I didn't let it show. "Are you finished?" "No, I'm not." She was breathing hard now. "You think you're so smart. You think you've won. But Adrian is my husband, mine, and I will make sure he never speaks to you again. I will make sure he cuts you out of his life completely. You'll die alone in your fancy apartment with all your money and no one who gives a shit about you." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." She hung up. I set my phone down and realized the entire boardroom was staring at me. "Apologies," I said calmly. "Family matter. Now, where were we on the Brooklyn development?" They continued, but I could see the questions in their eyes, the speculation. By tomorrow, everyone in this room would know about the wedding, about Selena, about my son. I didn't care. Let them talk. Let them all talk. Victor called during lunch. "We need to meet, in person. There's more." "How much more?" "Enough that you're going to want to sit down for this conversation." We met at a coffee shop 3 blocks from my office. Victor looked exactly like he always did. Average height, average build, forgettable face. The kind of man who could follow someone for weeks and never be noticed. It made him exceptionally good at his job. He slid a second folder across the table. "What am I looking at?" "Selena Hart's previous relationships, all 3 of them." I opened the folder, started reading, felt my blood go cold. "Tell me this is a mistake." "It's not." Victor's expression was grim. 2019, Marcus Weinstein, investment banker, engaged after 6 months, wedding planned, deposits made, then suddenly called off 3 weeks before the ceremony. Marcus filed a police report claiming Selena had stolen jewelry and cash from his apartment. Charges were dropped after Selena's father paid him $50,000. I kept reading. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were perfectly steady. 2021, Christopher Yates, tech entrepreneur. Relationship lasted 8 months. Ended when Christopher's business partner discovered Selena had been copying financial documents and feeding information to a competitor. No charges filed because Christopher didn't want the publicity, but he lost his company anyway. Victor paused, took a sip of his coffee. And then there's James Portland, 2022, lawyer, old money family. They dated for a year, got engaged, then James had a heart attack at 34. I looked up. A heart attack? Massive coronary, survived barely. But here's the interesting part. 3 weeks before the heart attack, James changed his will, named Selena as primary beneficiary. And 2 weeks before that, he increased his life insurance to $5 million. You're saying I'm saying the hospital found unusually high levels of synthetic ephedrine in his system, the kind that can trigger cardiac events in people with undiagnosed conditions. James's family hired their own investigator, found evidence that Selena had been researching heart attack symptoms and purchasing supplements online under fake names. But no charges. No, because James refused to believe it, said it was a coincidence, said his family was being paranoid. He defended her right up until she disappeared 2 weeks after he got out of the hospital. Took everything that wasn't nailed down. $20,000 in cash, jewelry, electronics, gone. I closed the folder, stared at Victor. You're telling me my daughter-in-law is a con artist who may have attempted murder. I'm telling you she has a pattern, and your son fits it perfectly. Successful enough to be worth her time, vulnerable enough to be manipulated, isolated from family, or in this case, from a mother he thinks doesn't care about him. We need to tell Adrian. He won't believe you, not coming from you. Victor was right. I knew he was right. Adrian was already convinced I was trying to sabotage his marriage. If I showed him this, he'd just think I'd fabricated it. Then what do we do? We wait, we watch, and we document everything. Eventually, she'll make a mistake. They always do. And if she hurts him before that happens? Victor's expression softened slightly. Then we hope your son is smarter than James Portland. I left that meeting feeling sick. Went back to my office and stared at the skyline and tried to figure out how I'd gotten here. My phone rang. Adrian. I'm sorry. His voice was rough, tired. I shouldn't have yelled at you earlier. Relief flooded through me. It's okay. I understand. But I need you to stop investigating Selena. The relief died. Adrian? No, Mom. Listen to me. I read that folder. I get that you're concerned. But those things you found? Selena explained everything. Her parents did have money, but they cut her off in college because she wanted to be independent. The job was arranged by a family connection, but she still earned her position. Everything in that report is either outdated or misinterpreted. And the previous relationships? The theft? The lies. His voice was hard now. Rumors spread by bitter ex-boyfriends who couldn't handle strong women. Selena showed me messages from all of them, showed me proof that they were obsessive and controlling and vengeful. She showed you messages. Yes, messages she could have easily fabricated. Oh my God, do you hear yourself? You've become paranoid, Mom. You've spent so long hiding from the world that you think everyone is out to get something from you. Adrian, please, just listen. I've listened enough. I'm done. Selena and I are leaving town for a while, a belated honeymoon. We need space from all of this. From you. Each word was a punch. How long? I don't know. A few weeks? Maybe longer. And when we get back, I need you to respect my marriage. That means no more investigations, no more files, no more trying to convince me that my wife is some kind of criminal. She assaulted me. She was defending me. You've treated me like I was an inconvenience my entire life, and she was standing up for... I never treated you like an inconvenience. My voice cracked, just slightly. I dedicated my entire life to protecting you. Protecting me? Or hiding from me? I had no answer for that. We're leaving tomorrow, he said quietly. I'll call when we get back. Maybe by then you'll have figured out how to be happy for me instead of trying to destroy the best thing that's ever happened to me. The line went dead. I sat there in my office as the sun set over the city and finally understood something I'd been avoiding for 32 years. I'd built an empire to protect my son. But empires are built on distance. And distance doesn't feel like love. It feels like abandonment. Rebecca knocked at 7:30. Evelyn, you should go home. You've been here since dawn. I'm fine. You haven't eaten. I'm not hungry. She came in anyway, set a container of soup on my desk, sat down in the chair Adrian had occupied that morning. You want to talk about it? Not particularly. Okay? She didn't move. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, I spoke. I made a choice 32 years ago. I thought it was the right one. And now? Now, I don't know. I looked at her. Rebecca was 36, close to Adrian's age. If you were my son, would you forgive me? She considered that. I don't know. But I think the better question is, do you forgive yourself? I didn't answer, because I couldn't. That night, I went home to my empty apartment and opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion that would never come. I sat on my balcony overlooking the city I'd conquered and tried to remember when winning had started feeling like losing. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. He's mine now. You'll never get him back. Enjoy your money, bitch. It's all you have left. Selena, using a burner number. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I forwarded the message to Victor with a single line. Accelerate the investigation. Because she was wrong about one thing. Money wasn't all I had left. I had rage. I had resources. I had 32 years of experience building things from nothing. And I had a very specific set of skills for destroying people who threatened what was mine. Selena Hart thought she'd won. She thought the war was over. But she'd made a critical mistake. She'd mistaken my silence for surrender. She'd mistaken my patience for weakness. She'd mistaken a strategic retreat for defeat. And by the time she realized her error, it would be far too late. I took another sip of wine and watched the city lights flicker below. Somewhere out there, my son was packing for a honeymoon with a woman who'd tried to poison her last fiancé. Somewhere out there, Selena was celebrating her victory. And somewhere in between, I was planning something neither of them would see coming. Because I'd spent 3 decades being the invisible woman. It was time to remind everyone why invisibility is the most dangerous weapon of all. You can't fight what you can't see. And they had no idea what was coming. Victor called 3 days later at 6 in the morning. I was already awake, staring at my coffee and pretending I didn't have a splitting headache from another sleepless night. "We have a problem." I sat up straighter. "What kind of problem?" "Selena filed a restraining order against you yesterday afternoon. Claims you've been harassing her, threatening her, using your wealth to intimidate her into leaving Adrian." The coffee cup stopped halfway to my mouth. "She did what?" "It gets worse. She's also filed a complaint with Adult Protective Services claiming Adrian is concerned about your mental competency. Says you've been exhibiting signs of paranoia, memory loss, erratic behavior. She's painted a picture of a deteriorating elderly woman who's become obsessed with destroying her son's marriage. I'm 59 years old, not exactly senile. Doesn't matter. The complaint triggers an investigation. They'll want to interview you, review your medical records, possibly evaluate your ability to manage your own affairs." I set the coffee down before I threw it. "This is insane. This is strategic." Victor's voice was grim. "She's not just defending herself, she's going on offense. If she can get you declared incompetent, even temporarily, she can argue that your investigation into her was the product of diminished mental capacity, discredit everything we found. And if the investigation finds nothing wrong with me, then she still wins because she's established a narrative. Bitter mother-in-law targeting innocent bride. By the time the truth comes out, if it ever does, Adrian will be so entrenched in defending her that he won't be able to admit he was wrong." I stood and walked to the window. The sun was just starting to rise over the city. From up here, everything looked clean, ordered, beautiful. From up here, you couldn't see the rot. What do I do? Cooperate fully with the investigation. Be calm, rational, professional. Show them you're of sound mind. Meanwhile, I keep digging. Because Selena just made a mistake. What mistake? She got greedy. People who file false reports always do. They can't help themselves. They pile on details, add embellishments, create elaborate stories. And elaborate stories have holes. Find them. Already on it. He hung up. I stood there watching the sunrise and tried to figure out how my life had turned into a legal thriller I never auditioned for. The restraining order arrived by courier at 9. I read it 3 times, each read making me angrier than the last. Selena claimed I'd shown up at their apartment unannounced and made threatening statements, that I'd sent her disturbing messages implying violence, that I'd hired people to follow her and photograph her without consent. Every single word was a lie. Well, except the part about hiring someone to investigate her. But that was hardly stalking. That was due diligence. My lawyer called 10 minutes after I finished reading. "Evelyn, we need to talk about this restraining order." "It's complete fiction, Martin." "I know, but we still have to take it seriously. No contact with Selena whatsoever. No texts, no calls, no showing up anywhere she might be. If you violate it, even accidentally, she can have you arrested. She assaulted me at the wedding. Where was my restraining order? You didn't file for one." "Because I didn't need to hide behind legal paperwork to deal with a 29-year-old con artist." Martin sighed. "Evelyn, I understand you're upset, but you need to be smart here. Selena is building a case. Everything you say, everything you do, it's all being documented and twisted. You have to stay above it." "Above it?" "Martin, she's trying to paint me as a delusional old woman who needs to be institutionalized." "I know. And the best way to prove her wrong is to not act like one. So no confrontations, no dramatic gestures, just calm, rational responses to everything." I wanted to scream, wanted to throw the phone through the window, wanted to march over to wherever Adrian and Selena were honeymooning and shake my son until he woke up. Instead, I said, "Fine, I'll be calm and rational. Anything else?" "Yes, the APS investigator wants to meet with you next week. I'll be there. Just answer their questions honestly. Don't get defensive. Don't bring up Selena unless they ask directly." "Wonderful. I'll pencil in my competency evaluation." After he hung up, I sat very still and tried to remember the last time I'd felt this powerless. It had been 32 years ago, standing in a hospital corridor while a doctor told me my husband was dying and there was nothing anyone could do about it. Standing there knowing I had a 3-year-old at home who would grow up without a father, and mountains of debt I had no idea how to climb. I'd felt small then, insignificant, breakable. I'd sworn I would never feel that way again. And yet here I was. Rebecca found me still sitting in my office at noon. "You have the development meeting in 20 minutes. Cancel it." "Evelyn, please, Rebecca, just cancel it. Cancel everything today." She studied my face, then quietly closed the door and sat down. "What happened?" I told her. All of it. The restraining order, the APS complaint, Selena's strategy to discredit me before I could expose her. Rebecca listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You know what this means, right? That she's smarter than I gave her credit for?" "No, that you're winning." I looked up. "How is any of this winning?" "Because people only go this hard on defense when they're scared. If Selena had nothing to hide, she'd ignore you, let you rant and investigate and look like the crazy mother-in-law. But instead, she's filing restraining orders and competency complaints and building elaborate legal cases. That's not confidence, that's panic. Panic that's currently destroying my relationship with my son. Temporarily." Rebecca leaned forward. "Evelyn, I've worked for you for 12 years. I've watched you outmaneuver competitors, navigate hostile takeovers, turn disaster projects into gold mines. You're not losing, you're just playing a longer game than she is." I wanted to believe her. Wanted to feel that cold strategic clarity that had built my empire. But all I could think about was Adrian on that phone call, the disgust in his voice, the way he'd said "mom" like it was an accusation. "What if the game takes too long?" I asked quietly. "What if by the time I expose her, there's nothing left of my relationship with Adrian to save?" Rebecca didn't have an answer for that. Neither did I. The APS investigator came the following Tuesday. Her name was Karen Chen, and she had the kind of professionally sympathetic expression that probably worked well on actual cases of elder abuse, but made me want to throw things. Martin sat next to me in my living room while Karen asked her questions. "Mrs. Voss, can you tell me what year it is?" 2024. "And who is the current president?" I told her. "Can you count backwards from 100 by sevens?" I did. "Do you manage your own finances?" "I manage a $4 billion real estate empire. Yes, I manage my own finances." Karen made a note. "And your relationship with your son? Can you describe it?" This was the trap. I could feel it. "We're working through some difficulties." "What kind of difficulties?" "The kind that happen when a son gets married and his mother and his wife don't get along." "Selena Hart claims you've made threatening statements toward her. Is that true?" "No." "She says you hired investigators to follow her." "I hired a private investigator to do a background check. That's not illegal. It's also not the same as following someone." "Why did you feel the need to investigate your son's wife?" "Because she assaulted me at their wedding reception, and I wanted to understand who would do something like that." Karen looked up from her notes. "Assaulted you?" "She smashed a plate of hot food into my face in front of 300 guests. Surely that was in her report." From Karen's expression, it clearly wasn't. "Mrs. Voss, Selena's complaint makes no mention of any assault. In fact, she describes you as becoming agitated and erratic at the wedding, making wild accusations, and then leaving abruptly." "I left because I'd just been publicly humiliated." "Did you file a police report about this alleged assault?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I'd been too busy trying to process the fact that my son had let it happen. Because I'd been too stunned to think straight. Because I'd spent 3 decades avoiding any kind of public attention, and calling the police would have meant explaining exactly who I was. Because I didn't want to ruin Adrian's wedding any more than it already was." Karen made another note. I couldn't see what she was writing, but I could imagine. The interview lasted 90 minutes. By the end of it, I felt like I'd been cross-examined for a crime I didn't commit. "Thank you for your time, Mrs. Voss," Karen said as she packed up her things. "I'll be filing my report with the state within 2 weeks. If I have any follow-up questions, I'll be in touch." After she left, Martin turned to me. "You did well." I sounded defensive. "You sounded like someone who's been falsely accused. That's appropriate." He hesitated. "But Evelyn, I have to ask, are you sure you want to keep pursuing this? The restraining order, the investigation, all of it, it's taking a toll. Maybe it would be better to step back. Let Adrian figure things out on his own." "You mean let Selena drain him dry while I watch from a distance?" I mean, give your son the space to make his own mistakes and his own realizations. And if those realizations come too late? Martin didn't answer, just gathered his briefcase and left me sitting in my living room alone. That night, Victor sent me a message. Need to meet. Found something big. We met at the same coffee shop, same table, different crisis. Victor slid a manila envelope across to me. Remember James Portland, the ex-fiancé who had the heart attack? The one Selena may have tried to kill? Yes, I remember. I tracked him down. He's living in Oregon now, working as a consultant, and he's willing to talk. I opened the envelope. Inside was a transcript of Victor's interview with James. I started reading. My hand started shaking halfway through. She told him she was pregnant, I said slowly. 2 weeks before the heart attack, showed him positive pregnancy tests, made him change his will and increase his life insurance because they were starting a family. Keep reading. After he survived and she disappeared, he went through her things, found the pregnancy tests in the bathroom trash. They'd been tampered with, HCG hormone purchased online and added to the strips. Fake pregnancy to motivate the will change, Victor said. Classic long con setup. And here's the kicker. 3 weeks ago, Selena told Adrian she's pregnant. The coffee shop suddenly felt very cold. No. I have a source at their doctor's office. She scheduled a pregnancy confirmation appointment but canceled it the day before. Said she'd rather use a home test instead. She's been showing Adrian positive tests. He thinks he's going to be a father. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. She's doing it again, the exact same play. Not exact. She's refined it. With James, she pushed too hard too fast. With Adrian, she's being patient, building the narrative slowly. First the wedding, then the pregnancy, then gradually isolating him from you. Eventually, she'll suggest he needs to think about his family's future, about securing his finances, about maybe having his mother, who clearly isn't mentally stable, sign over some assets to protect them from her erratic decision-making. And Adrian would believe it because I've already been investigated by APS. Exactly. I stood up, paced to the window, came back. We need to tell him. He won't believe us. He needs proof he can't deny. Then get me proof. I'm working on it. But Evelyn, Victor's voice was careful. I need to tell you something else. James Portland isn't the only one willing to talk. I contacted Christopher Yates and Marcus Weinstein. They've all agreed to provide statements, testimony about Selena's patterns, the manipulation, the lies, the theft. That's good. But it might not be enough. Because here's what Selena will argue. These are bitter ex-boyfriends with an axe to grind. Rich men who got dumped and can't handle rejection. Their word against hers, and she's pregnant, young, sympathetic. So what do? Victor leaned back. We let her hang herself. Excuse me? Every con artist has the same fatal flaw. They can't stop. Even when they've won, even when they should walk away, they keep pushing, keep taking, because they get high on it, on the control, on the manipulation, on proving they're smarter than everyone else. You want to use me as bait. I want to give Selena enough rope to demonstrate her true character in a way that can't be explained away or blamed on vindictive exes. I want to catch her in the act. How? He pulled out another folder. How do you feel about pretending to have a medical crisis? I listened to his plan. It was risky, possibly dangerous, definitely manipulative. It was perfect. When do we start? Soon. But first, we need to lay groundwork, make it believable. That means you need to start acting fragile. The word made me flinch. But I understood. For the next 2 weeks, I played a role I'd never imagined. I started making small mistakes at work, forgetting meeting times, mixing up names. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make my staff worry. I canceled appointments, stopped returning calls as quickly, let my appearance slip just slightly, less makeup, simpler clothes, hair not quite as carefully styled. Rebecca noticed first, Evelyn, are you feeling okay? You seem off. Just tired. The stress with Adrian, I suppose. Maybe you should take some time off. Go somewhere quiet. Rest. I smiled sadly. Maybe you're right. Word spread. I could feel it. The whispers. The concerned looks. The carefully worded questions about whether I was handling things all right. My board started having private conversations I wasn't invited to. Competitors started circling, sensing weakness. And through it all, I waited. 2 weeks after my performance began, I got the call I'd been expecting. Adrian. Mom, we need to talk. His voice was different, softer, worried. Of course, sweetheart. How was the honeymoon? It was good. Look, I've been hearing things about you. People saying you're not yourself, that you've been making mistakes at work. Oh, that. I let my voice sound tired, older. I suppose I have been a bit scattered lately. Are you okay? Is something wrong? I'm fine, Adrian. Just getting older, I guess. It happens to everyone. Silence on the other end. Then, Selena thinks maybe we should have dinner, the three of us. Clear the air. There it was. The invitation I'd been engineering. I'd like that. I'd like that very much. Really? Because last time we talked, you were pretty angry. I was wrong to investigate Selena. I see that now. I was just scared of losing you. But that doesn't excuse my behavior. I'd like to apologize to both of you. More silence. I could almost hear him processing this. Okay. Yeah, okay. How about Friday? We could come to your place. Selena suggested it might be more comfortable for you than going out. Of course she did. My apartment. My territory. Where I'd feel safe enough to let my guard down. Friday would be perfect. After we hung up, I called Victor. It's happening Friday night. They're coming here. Good. I'll have everything ready. You remember the plan? I remember. Evelyn, his voice was serious. Once we do this, there's no going back. Are you sure you want to go through with it? I thought about Adrian's voice on the phone, the concern, the first hint of my son actually caring about me in years. I thought about Selena's text message. He's mine now. I thought about every woman like her I'd watched destroy families, drain bank accounts, leave wreckage in their wake while they moved on to the next victim. I'm sure. Friday arrived. I spent the morning preparing my apartment. Victor's team had installed hidden cameras in every room 3 days earlier, disguised as regular household items. Audio equipment in the light fixtures, everything recording to encrypted servers off-site. The FBI had been briefed. They were standing by. Because this wasn't just about saving my son anymore. This was about stopping a predator before she destroyed another life. I dressed carefully. A soft cardigan that made me look vulnerable. Comfortable pants, minimal jewelry. Hair in a simple style. The image of a tired, aging woman who wasn't quite keeping it together anymore. I practiced my expressions in the mirror. Confusion. Uncertainty. The slight tremor in my hands when I held something. By the time the doorbell rang at 7, I was ready. Adrian looked tan from the honeymoon, relaxed, happy. It broke my heart a little. Selena looked triumphant. Mom. Adrian hugged me. I let myself lean into it, feeling frail. Adrian, you look wonderful. And Selena, thank you for coming. Of course, Evelyn. Her voice was honey. We've been so worried about you. I ushered them inside, offered drinks, played the gracious hostess. We sat in the living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows and million-dollar view and pretended we were a normal family having a normal dinner. I'm glad you suggested this, I said, my voice deliberately soft. I've been doing a lot of thinking about everything that happened, about my behavior. We have too, Adrian said. He reached for Selena's hand. And we want you to know, we're willing to move past it, if you are. I am. I truly am. I looked at Selena. I'm sorry for investigating you, for implying things about your character. It was wrong of me. She smiled. That same perfect smile she'd worn at the wedding before she threw food in my face. I forgive you, Evelyn. I know you were just protecting Adrian, even if you went about it the wrong way. That's very kind. I paused. Let my hand shake slightly as I reached for my water glass. The truth is, I've been feeling confused lately. About a lot of things. Maybe I'm not as sharp as I used to be. Adrian's expression changed. Mom, what do you mean? Oh, nothing serious, just forgetting things, missing appointments. My assistant has been very patient, but I think I'm making her job harder than it should be. Selena leaned forward. Have you seen a doctor? Not yet. I keep meaning to, but then I forget to make the appointment. I laughed, but it sounded hollow. Ironic, isn't it? Mom, you should see someone. This could be serious. I suppose. It's just hard to think about. Getting older, losing control. I looked directly at Selena, needing to trust other people to help make decisions. Her eyes gleamed. Just for a second. Just enough. That's what family is for, she said softly. Supporting each other. Making sure everyone is taken care of. I've been thinking about that too. About family. About legacy. I paused. About what happens to everything I've built when I'm gone. Or when I can't manage it anymore.
You don't need to think about that right now, Adrian said quickly. But Selena spoke over him. Actually, it's smart to plan ahead, especially if you're having memory issues. You wouldn't want to make important decisions when you're not at your best. That's true. I wouldn't. We talked through dinner, normal conversation. Selena asked about my business. I gave vague, slightly confused answers. Let her see me struggling to remember details. Adrian watched with increasing concern. Selena watched like a predator scenting blood. After we ate, I suggested coffee. Led them to the kitchen. And then I did something that would have been convincing if I hadn't practiced it 50 times. I knocked over my water glass. It shattered on the tile floor. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I'm such a mess lately. It's okay, Mom. It's just a glass. But while Adrian was helping me clean up the water, Selena wandered back toward the living room, toward my desk where I'd left my laptop open. I watched her through the kitchen doorway, watched her glance back at us, watched her lean toward the computer screen. The screen was displaying my financial dashboard, account balances, investment portfolios, everything a con artist would need to see to understand exactly how much she stood to gain. I'd left it open on purpose. Adrian, Selena called sweetly. Your mother has some medication bottles here. Should she be taking this many different pills? He went to look. I followed, moving slowly. Selena was holding 3 prescription bottles I'd arranged on the side table. 2 were real medications for minor issues. The third was vitamins in a prescription bottle Victor had prepared. I didn't realize you were taking so much medication, Adrian said, reading the labels. Oh, you know, this and that. For my heart, for my nerves. Sometimes I forget which ones I've already taken. Selena's smile widened. That can be dangerous, Evelyn. Taking double doses accidentally. Or missing doses. Maybe you need someone to help manage your medications. Maybe. I sat down heavily, let my voice waver. I'm just so tired of trying to keep track of everything. The business, the medications, the appointments. It's overwhelming. Mom. Adrian sat next to me, his face full of concern I hadn't seen in years. Why didn't you tell me you were struggling this much? I didn't want to worry you. You just got married. You're starting your life. The last thing you need is a mother who's falling apart. You're not falling apart, aren't I? I looked at him, let tears form in my eyes, real ones because this part wasn't acting. Adrian, I'm scared. I built something so big and now I don't know if I can hold on to it anymore. I don't know who to trust. I don't know what to do. Selena moved closer, knelt down in front of me, took my hands in hers. Evelyn, listen to me. You're not alone. You have family now. You have me. And I promise you, we're going to take care of everything. We're going to make sure you're safe, that your legacy is protected. There it was. You would do that? Even after everything I said about you? Of course, because that's what family does. She squeezed my hands. Now, I think the first thing we should do is sit down with your lawyers, maybe set up some kind of trust or power of attorney arrangement, just as a safety net. So if you ever do have a serious medical issue, everything is already organized. That sounds sensible. And maybe, she continued, her voice so gentle, so caring, maybe we should also talk about the company, about whether it's too much stress right now, whether it might be better to step back. Let someone else handle the day-to-day operations. Someone like who? Well, Adrian is your son, your heir. It would make sense for him to start learning the business, taking on more responsibility. Adrian looked uncomfortable. Selena, I don't know anything about real estate development. You could learn, and I could help. I have experience in business. We could do this together. She was still holding my hands, still looking at me with those sympathetic eyes.
and she had no idea that everything she was saying was being recorded by 4 different cameras and sent directly to federal investigators. Could I think about it? I asked quietly. It's a lot to process. Of course. Take all the time you need. Selena stood. But Evelyn, I want you to know something. I was wrong about you. I thought you were trying to interfere in our marriage because you didn't approve of me, but I see now that you were just scared of being alone, scared of losing your son, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how I reacted at the wedding. She didn't mention throwing food in my face, just how she reacted. Thank you, Selena. That means a lot. They left an hour later. Adrian hugged me extra long at the door. I'm going to call you more, okay? Check in. Make sure you're doing all right. I'd like that, sweetheart. After they left, I stood in my apartment and counted to 60. Then Victor emerged from my bedroom where he'd been monitoring everything. We got it, all of it. Her suggesting the power of attorney, the manipulation about stepping back from the company, the way she positioned herself and Adrian to take control of your assets. Is it enough? Combined with the statements from her exes, the pattern of behavior, the fake pregnancy we can prove once we subpoena her medical records? Yes, it's enough. I sat down. My hands were shaking for real now. How long? The FBI wants to move fast, before she can convince Adrian to actually sign anything. They're preparing warrants now, 48 hours, maybe less. 48 hours until my daughter-in-law was arrested. 48 hours until my son discovered his wife was a criminal. 48 hours until everything exploded. I looked at Victor. What happens to Adrian when they arrest her? He'll be questioned, investigated. They'll need to determine if he was complicit or just another victim. He's a victim. I know. But they'll still need to verify that. I pressed my hands to my face. This is going to destroy him. Staying married to her would have destroyed him worse. He was right. I knew he was right, but that didn't make it hurt less. That didn't make me feel less like the villain in my son's story, even though I was trying to save his life. After Victor left, I poured myself a drink and stood at the windows overlooking my city. In 2 days, Selena Hart would be in custody. In 2 days, Adrian would know the truth. In 2 days, I would find out if my son could ever forgive me for destroying his marriage to save his future. And I had absolutely no idea which way it would go. The call came at 5:30 in the morning, exactly 39 hours after that dinner. I was already awake, had been for hours, watching the clock and waiting for the world to implode. It's done. Victor's voice was clipped, professional. FBI executed the warrant 20 minutes ago. Selena Hart is in custody. I gripped the phone tighter. And Adrian? He's with her, at their apartment. Agents are questioning him now. Is he? He's not being arrested, just questioned, but Evelyn... Victor paused. He doesn't know you were involved. The agents were instructed not to mention your cooperation. As far as Adrian knows, this is coming from Selena's previous victims filing complaints. Good. That's good. It wasn't good. It was a lie. Another one. But I couldn't think about that right now. There's something else. When they searched the apartment, they found documentation, forged medical records showing a pregnancy, a fake ultrasound Selena had commissioned, and a drafted power of attorney document with your name on it, pre-filled except for your signature. My stomach turned. She was going to forge my signature. Looks that way. Or coerce you into signing while claiming you were mentally incompetent to understand what you were agreeing to. Either way, it's textbook elder financial abuse. Combined with the fraud charges from her previous victims, she's looking at serious federal time. I should have felt vindicated, triumphant, relieved. Instead, I just felt sick. What happens now? What? Arraignment later today. Her lawyer will probably push for bail, but given the flight risk and the pattern of behavior across state lines, I doubt she'll get it. Then it's just a matter of the prosecution building their case. How long before Adrian finds out I was the one who, hard to say. Could be days. Could be hours. Depends on whether Selena tells him during questioning. She might use it as leverage. Try to paint you as the villain to gain his sympathy. Of course she would. Keep me updated. Will do. I hung up and stood at my window watching the sun rise over a city that looked exactly the same as it had yesterday, even though everything had changed. My phone rang again immediately. Rebecca. Have you seen the news? No? Why? Turn on Channel 7, now.
I grabbed the remote, flipped to the local news station, and there it was. Breaking news this morning as Selena Hart, the new wife of Adrian Voss, son of real estate billionaire Evelyn Voss, was arrested in a dramatic pre-dawn raid by the FBI. Hart faces multiple federal charges, including wire fraud, elder financial exploitation, and conspiracy to commit theft. Sources say this arrest is connected to a multi-state investigation into Hart's alleged pattern of targeting wealthy men for financial gain. We'll have more details as this story develops. They showed footage of Selena being led from her apartment building in handcuffs. Her hair was messy. No makeup. She looked young and scared and nothing like the polished woman who'd smiled at me across my living room 2 nights ago. Then they cut to a photo of me from some charity event 5 years ago. Evelyn Voss, Hart's mother-in-law, is one of the wealthiest women in America, with an estimated net worth of over $4 billion. Sources close to the investigation say Hart may have targeted the Voss family specifically because of their wealth. The FBI is asking anyone with information about other potential victims to come forward. My phone started ringing and ringing and ringing. News outlets, competitors, people I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly desperate for a comment. I turned it off. Then I sat very still and waited for the call I knew was coming. It took 3 hours. When Adrian's name finally flashed across my screen, I almost didn't answer, almost let it go to voicemail, almost took the coward's way out. But I'd been a coward long enough. I answered. "Did you know?" His voice was destroyed, raw, like he'd been screaming or crying or both. "Did you fucking know this was going to happen? Adrian, did you know?" "Yes." No point in lying now. "Yes, I knew." The sound he made wasn't quite a laugh and wasn't quite a sob. "Of course you did. Of course. You orchestrated the whole thing, didn't you? The dinner, the performance about being confused and frail. You set her up. I documented her crimes. I gave the FBI evidence of a pattern of behavior that... You destroyed my marriage. Your marriage was a lie." I was standing now, my own voice rising. "She was never pregnant, Adrian. The whole thing was fake. She was conning you exactly like she conned 3 other men before you. You don't know that. You don't know her like I do. I know her better than you ever did, because I actually looked. I actually investigated instead of just believing every word out of her mouth. Because you're paranoid. Because you think everyone is after your money. Because you've spent so long hiding from the world that you can't recognize genuine love when you see it." That one hit. Hard. "Is that what you think this was? Love?" "Yes, she loved me. She chose me. Not because of money I didn't have, not because of who my mother was, but because of me." "Adrian," I tried to make my voice gentle, failed. "She knew exactly who your mother was from the very beginning. That's why she chose you." "You're lying. I have proof. Emails between Selena and her mother from 6 months before she even met you, discussing the Voss family, researching my company, planning an approach." Silence. You're making that up. "The FBI has copies. They'll show you if you ask." More silence. Longer this time. I could hear him breathing on the other end, ragged, uneven. "I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe any of this is real." "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry." "Don't." His voice cracked. "Don't call me that. Don't pretend you care. If you cared, you would have trusted me to figure this out myself. You would have respected my choices, my life. Instead, you took everything from me. I was trying to protect you. No, you were trying to control me, just like you've been trying to control everything since Dad died. Hide the money. Hide yourself. Hide the truth. Make all the decisions. Play chess with people's lives because you think you're smarter than everyone else. That's not fair, isn't it? You manipulated me at that dinner. You pretended to be sick, confused, vulnerable. You made me feel sorry for you. You made me want to help you. And the whole time it was an act, a performance, to trap Selena. To expose her. There's a difference. Not to me there isn't." He was crying now. I could hear it. "You know what the worst part is? She was right about you. She told me from the beginning that you were cold, controlling, incapable of actual human connection. And I defended you. I told her she was wrong. I told her you were just protective and misunderstood. Adrian? But she was right. You are cold. This whole thing proves it. You didn't save me. You destroyed the one good thing in my life because you couldn't stand not being in control. The one good thing in your life was a criminal who was planning to rob you blind and possibly kill you. My voice was shaking. She had fake medical records showing a pregnancy that didn't exist. She had power of attorney documents ready to forge my signature. She was setting up to drain my accounts and disappear, just like she did to James Portland. James Portland is a liar. His family paid him to say those things. His medical records aren't lies. The ephedrine in his system isn't a lie. The pattern isn't a lie. Stop it. Just stop. I don't want to hear any more of your evidence or your proof or your justifications. I don't care. You should care. Your wife is a con artist who is using you. She's not my wife anymore. His voice went quiet, flat. They already told me. The marriage is void, fraud. Turns out when someone marries you under false pretenses with the intent to commit theft, it doesn't count. So congratulations, Mom. You win. You got what you wanted. What I wanted was for you to be safe. What you wanted was to be right, and now you are. I hope it was worth it. The line went dead. I stood there holding my silent phone and felt something crack in my chest that I didn't think could be repaired. The media frenzy lasted for days. Every news outlet running the story, every tabloid speculating about the billionaire mother-in-law who'd helped bring down her son's con artist wife. They called me brave, a hero, a woman who'd protected her family at any cost. They had no idea what it had actually cost. Adrian stopped answering my calls completely, blocked my number. When I tried to go to his apartment, the doorman turned me away with a message that Mr. Voss had left strict instructions not to allow me up. I hired a lawyer to help him deal with the legal fallout, sent the bills to my office. Never heard if he even used the lawyer's services. Victor kept me updated on the case. Selena had been denied bail. Her lawyer was trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecution wasn't budging. With testimony from 3 previous victims, documentation of the fake pregnancy, the forged documents, and the recorded conversation from my apartment, they had her locked down. She was going to prison. No question. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt like I'd won a war and lost everything that mattered. Rebecca found me in my office 3 weeks after the arrest, staring at a spreadsheet I hadn't actually read in an hour. You need to go home. I'm fine. You're not fine. You haven't been fine since this started, and sitting here pretending to work isn't helping. What else am I supposed to do? She sat down across from me. Have you tried talking to him? Really talking? Not about Selena or the case or any of it. Just talking to your son? He won't take my calls. Then write him a letter. Rebecca, write him a letter. Tell him everything you never said. Everything you've been holding in for 32 years. Tell him the truth about why you hid the money. About what it was like raising him alone. About how scared you were. About how much you love him, even if you've been terrible at showing it. What if he doesn't read it? What if he does? I went home that night and tried to write the letter. Sat at my desk with expensive stationery and a pen and couldn't figure out how to start. Dear Adrian? Too formal. Sweetheart? He'd told me not to call him that. Son? True, but insufficient. I wrote 17 different opening lines, threw them all away. Finally, at 2 a.m, exhausted and raw, I just started writing. No plan, no structure, just words. I wrote about his father, about the fear after he died, about the debt collectors, and the threats, and the nights I sat up crying because I didn't know how to save us. I wrote about the first property, the condemned building everyone said would bankrupt me, the nights I spent renovating it myself because I couldn't afford to hire help, the terror when I signed the mortgage, the shock when it sold for twice what I'd invested. I wrote about watching him grow up, about missing his school plays because I was at work, about the parent-teacher conferences I skipped, about every birthday I ruined by being too tired or too stressed to be present. I wrote about the decision to hide the money, about watching my sister turn into a stranger, about his father's brother trying to sue me, about learning that wealth turned people into predators, and I refused to let that happen to my son. I wrote about the wedding, about standing in that ballroom covered in mashed potatoes, about the humiliation and rage and heartbreak of watching him stand there and not defend me. I wrote about Selena, about what I saw in her eyes, about the research and the investigation and the growing horror as I realized what she was. I wrote about the setup, about pretending to be frail, about hating myself for manipulating him even as I knew it was necessary. And I wrote about now, about the silence, about the empty apartment, about building an empire but losing my son. The letter ended up being 11 pages long. My hand cramped, my eyes burned. The sun was rising by the time I finished. I read it through once, considered editing it, decided against it. If I was going to be honest, I needed to be completely honest, messy and imperfect and real. I put it in an envelope, wrote his address, and left it on my desk, because I still wasn't sure I had the courage to actually send it. 2 days later, Selena's lawyer requested a meeting. With me, Martin advised against it. There's no reason for you to talk to her. The case is solid. Let the prosecution handle it. I want to hear what she has to say. Evelyn, set it up. They brought her to a conference room at the Federal Detention Center. She was wearing an orange jumpsuit, no makeup, hair pulled back. She looked younger without all the polish, and meaner. Her lawyer sat next to her. My lawyer sat next to me. A guard stood by the door. Thank you for coming, Mrs. Voss. Selena's voice was different. The sweetness was gone. What replaced it was pure venom. I'm sure you're very busy counting your money and destroying lives. I'm here as a courtesy. You have 5 minutes. Then I'll make this quick. She leaned forward. I want you to know that I did love Adrian. Maybe not at first. Maybe not the way you think love should look. But I did love him. You had a funny way of showing it. I gave him something you never could. I made him feel special, important, loved for who he was, not what he could provide. For 2 years, I made him happy. Can you say the same? That hurt more than it should have. You were planning to rob him, to forge documents and steal from an elderly woman. I was planning to secure our future, to make sure we'd be taken care of. Is that really so different from what you did? Building your empire while your son grew up alone? I built that empire to protect him. No, Selena smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. You built it to protect yourself, to feel powerful, to never be vulnerable again. Adrian was just your excuse. Are we done here? Almost. She glanced at her lawyer, then back at me. I'm willing to make a deal. I'll plead guilty to reduce charges. Do my time quietly. No media circus, no tell-all book, no interviews dragging your family through the mud. In exchange, I want you to talk to Adrian. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I did care about him. Tell him he deserved better than both of us. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, my lawyer has already lined up 3 separate media outlets interested in my story. The poor girl who fell in love with a billionaire's son and got destroyed by his vindictive mother. The sympathetic young wife crushed by a woman who couldn't stand to lose control. I'll paint you as a monster, Evelyn, and people will believe me. Because nobody likes billionaires. Nobody trusts them, and everyone loves an underdog story. Her lawyer cleared his throat. My client is prepared to sign an NDA, complete media silence about the Voss family, in exchange for a statement from Mrs. Voss confirming that Selena expressed genuine remorse and concern for Adrian's well-being. I looked at Selena, at this woman who'd tried to destroy my son, who'd manipulated him, lied to him, planned to rob him, and possibly worse. No. Her expression shifted. Excuse me? No deal. You want to go on television and paint yourself as the victim? Go ahead, tell your story. See how sympathetic people are when the prosecution presents their evidence, when your previous victims testify, when the jury sees the fake ultrasound and the forged documents and hears the recordings of you planning elder financial abuse. You're making a mistake. No. I made my mistakes 32 years ago. This isn't one of them. I stood. You're going to prison, Selena, for a long time, and no amount of media manipulation is going to change that. So save your deals and your threats and your fake remorse. We're done here. I walked out, didn't look back. Martin caught up with me in the parking lot. That was risky. She could make things very uncomfortable. Let her try. I'm done being threatened, done negotiating with people who think they can intimidate me into compliance. What about Adrian? What if she does go public? What if it makes things worse between you? I looked at him. It can't get worse. He already hates me. At least this way I don't have to lie to him again.
That night, I took the letter from my desk. Read it through one more time, then I mailed it. Because Rebecca was right. Because I'd spent 32 years not saying the things that mattered. Because even if Adrian never forgave me, at least he'd know the truth. All of it. The trial was scheduled for 6 weeks later. Selena's lawyer tried every delay tactic in the book, but the judge wasn't having it. The prosecution was ready, the evidence was overwhelming. There was no reason to wait. I wasn't planning to attend. Martin said it wasn't necessary. My testimony had already been recorded in depositions. The video evidence spoke for itself. But 3 days before the trial started, I got a call from the prosecutor. "Mrs. Voss, I wanted to give you a heads up. Adrian is on the witness list." My heart stopped. What? Why? Selena's lawyer's calling him. They're going to try to paint her as a loving wife who made some mistakes. They need Adrian to testify about their relationship, about how happy he was, about how much she cared for him. And he agreed to this? He didn't have much choice. He was subpoenaed. Will he? I couldn't finish the question. The prosecutor understood anyway. Will he defend her? I don't know. From what I understand, he's been pretty isolated since the arrest. Not talking to family, not talking to friends. If her lawyers gotten to him, convinced him this was all a misunderstanding, then he'll testify that I destroyed his marriage for no reason. It's possible. I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat very still and realized I was about to find out if my son loved me at all, or if I'd lost him forever. The trial started on a Tuesday. I wore black, sat in the back of the courtroom, tried to be invisible. The prosecution went first. Methodical, devastating. They presented the evidence piece by piece, the fake pregnancy test, the forged documents, the testimony from James Portland, Christopher Yates, Marcus Weinstein. Each man describing the same pattern, the same lies, the same manipulation. Selena sat at the defense table looking small and scared and nothing like the predator she was. Her lawyer tried to poke holes, suggested the ex-boyfriends were bitter and lying, claimed the forged documents were just drafts Selena had been researching, not actual plans. It was weak. Everyone could see it. Then on the third day, they called Adrian to the stand. I stopped breathing when he walked in. He looked terrible, thinner than I'd seen him, dark circles under his eyes, hair uncombed, like he'd stopped caring about anything. He was sworn in, sat down, looked straight ahead. Not at me, not at Selena, just ahead. Selena's lawyer stood. "Mr. Voss, can you describe your relationship with my client?" "We were married." His voice was flat, empty. "And before that? How did you meet?" "At a work event. She worked for a marketing firm. We started talking, started dating." "And how would you describe those early months?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "Good. They were good." "Did Selena ever indicate that she was interested in you because of your family's wealth?" "No." "Did she ever ask you for money? Pressure you to spend beyond your means?" "No. If anything, she tried to pay for things herself. I insisted on covering expenses." "Because you loved her?" "Yes." Selena's lawyer smiled. "And when did you propose?" 8 months after we started dating." "That's relatively quick. Were you pressured into it?" "No. I wanted to marry her." "Can you tell the court about your mother's reaction to your engagement?" Here it was. The trap. Adrian's jaw tightened. My mother didn't approve. "Why not?" "She thought Selena was after our family's money." "Was she?" "I didn't think so at the time." "At the time. And now?" Adrian finally looked at Selena. His expression was unreadable. "Now I don't know what was real and what wasn't." The lawyer's smile faltered slightly. "Mr. Voss, did your wife ever threaten you, hurt you, steal from you?" "No." "Did she make you happy?" "Yes." "Do you believe she loved you?" Adrian didn't answer right away. The courtroom was completely silent. "I think she loved parts of me. The parts that were useful, the parts that fit into whatever plan she had. I don't think she loved me the way I loved her. I don't think she was capable of it." "Objection," Selena's lawyer said quickly. "The witness is speculating about my client's emotional capacity." "Sustained," the judge said. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. The prosecution stood for cross-examination. "Mr. Voss, were you aware that your wife had told you she was pregnant?" "Yes." "Were you excited about becoming a father?" Yes. Did you know the pregnancy was fake? Adrian's face went white. Not until after she was arrested. How did you feel when you learned the truth? Devastated. Betrayed. Did you know about her previous relationships? About the pattern of behavior? Not until my mother showed me the investigation report. And what did you do with that information? I didn't believe it. I thought my mother was lying, manufacturing evidence to break us up. Why did you think that? Because Adrian's voice cracked. Because I wanted to believe Selena loved me. Because believing her meant I wasn't alone. And believing my mother meant admitting I'd been a fool. The prosecutor softened her voice. Mr. Voss, I know this is difficult, but I need you to tell the court. Do you believe now that Selena Hart married you with the intent to defraud you and your family? Adrian looked at Selena again. She was crying, silent tears running down her face. He looked at me for the first time. Our eyes met across the courtroom. Yes, he whispered. I believe that now. Selena's lawyer tried to redirect, tried to salvage something, but it was over. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, came back with guilty verdicts on all counts. Selena was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. As they led her away, she looked at me one last time, mouthed something I couldn't quite read. Maybe it was, I'm sorry. Maybe it was, I hate you. It didn't matter anymore. Adrian left the courthouse immediately after the verdict. Didn't look back. Didn't acknowledge me. I sat in the courtroom after everyone else had gone and tried to figure out if I'd done the right thing. I'd saved my son from a predator. I'd protected our family's wealth. I'd exposed a criminal who would have destroyed more lives. But I'd also lost Adrian. Maybe permanently, and I didn't know how to fix that. I didn't know if it could be fixed. That night my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Mom? Adrian's voice was raw, broken. Can I come over? I think we need to talk. Relief flooded through me so intensely I nearly dropped the phone. Yes, of course. Anytime. I'm outside. I buzzed him up, stood at my door, watched him walk down the hallway toward me. When he reached me, he just stood there, looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I got your letter, he said quietly. Oh, I read it 17 times, every word. Adrian, I'm so sorry for everything, for all of it. I know. He stepped forward, wrapped his arms around me, and broke down completely. I held my son while he sobbed, held him the way I should have been holding him for 32 years, and for the first time since his wedding, I let myself cry too. We stood in my entryway for a long time, not talking, just holding each other while he cried and I tried to memorize the feeling of my son in my arms again. When he finally pulled back, his face was blotchy and wet, and he looked 16 again, lost and hurting and needing his mother. I don't know how to do this, he said. I don't know how to forgive you and hate you at the same time. You don't have to forgive me. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I want to. I read your letter and I understand why you did everything. I get it intellectually, but emotionally. He wiped his eyes. I'm so angry, Mom. At you. At Selena. At myself for being stupid enough to fall for it. You weren't stupid. You were in love. Same thing, apparently. I led him to the living room. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, a careful distance between us, like we were strangers learning how to be near each other again. When did you know? He asked quietly. When did you know for sure that she was conning me? The wedding. The moment she threw that food in my face. That wasn't anger. That was calculation. She wanted to humiliate me publicly, so you'd have to choose between defending your mother or your new wife. And when you chose silence, she knew she'd won. He flinched. I should have stopped her. I just stood there and let her do that to you. You were in shock. I don't blame you for that. You should. I blame myself. He looked at me. Why didn't you tell me the truth from the beginning? About the money. About everything. If I'd known, maybe I would have seen through her. Or maybe you would have become exactly the kind of person Selena could have spotted from a mile away. Rich, entitled, used to getting what you wanted. I've watched wealth destroy people, Adrian. Turn them into monsters. I didn't want that for you. So instead you let me think you were poor? Let me stress about money my entire adult life when one phone call from you could have solved everything?
Yes. The honesty seemed to surprise him. You're not going to justify it, make excuses?
No, because you're right. I made a choice that hurt you. I thought I was protecting you, but what I was really doing was protecting myself from having to trust you with the truth. I was scared you'd change, scared you'd look at me differently, scared I'd lose you to the same greed that poisoned everyone else around me. You lost me anyway. I know.
We sat in silence. The city sparkled below us through the floor-to-ceiling windows. All that money, all that power, and none of it could fix what I'd broken. She told me she was pregnant, Adrian said suddenly. Showed me the test. I was terrified and excited and completely overwhelmed. Started looking at bigger apartments we couldn't afford. Started researching daycares and schools. Started imagining this whole future. His voice cracked. And none of it was real. The baby wasn't real. The future wasn't real. She wasn't real. I don't even know who I was married to. Like, what was her plan? String me along for months pretending to be pregnant, then fake a miscarriage? Or actually try to get pregnant for real once she'd secured access to your money? I don't know. The prosecutor thinks she was keeping her options open. If the con was working, she'd fake a miscarriage and use your grief to manipulate you further. If she sensed you were getting suspicious, she might have actually gotten pregnant to lock you in permanently. That's sick. That's sociopathy. Adrian put his head in his hands. How did I not see it? Everyone keeps asking me that. The FBI, the lawyers, my friends. How did you not know? Like I'm an idiot. Like there should have been obvious signs. There probably were signs. Small ones. But Adrian, people like Selena are professionals. They're good at what they do because they know how to make you not see the truth. They love bomb you, isolate you from people who might question them, make you feel special and chosen and lucky. By the time you realize what's happening, you're already in too deep. You saw through her immediately. Because I wasn't in love with her, because I could be objective, and because I hesitated. Because I've spent 30 years being suspicious of everyone. It's made me good at spotting predators. It's also made me terrible at trusting the people who actually deserve it. He looked up. Are you talking about me? I'm talking about both of us. I didn't trust you with the truth about my wealth because I was too damaged to believe you wouldn't be corrupted by it. And you didn't trust me when I warned you about Selena because you were too hurt by my absence to believe I actually cared about your well-being. So we're both broken. Spectacularly. A small sound escaped him. Almost a laugh. Almost. What do we do now? He asked. I don't know. I've never been good at the emotional parts. I can build empires and destroy enemies and move millions of dollars with a phone call. But fixing a relationship with my son? I have no idea how to do that. Maybe that's okay. Maybe we figure it out together. You'd want that? After everything? I don't know what I want. He rubbed his face. I'm angry at you. I'm angry at Selena. I'm angry at myself. But underneath all that anger, I'm just sad. Because I wasted 2 years on someone who never loved me. Because I pushed away the one person who was actually trying to protect me, even if she did it badly. Because my dad died when I was 3. And I don't even remember him. And you've been alone this whole time carrying all of this. His voice broke completely. You've been alone for 32 years, and I never even asked if you were okay. And just like that, I was crying too. I made myself alone. I managed. I chose distance. I chose work over being present. I chose building an empire over building a relationship with you. You were a child. None of this was your responsibility. But I'm not a child anymore. Haven't been for a long time, and I still never asked. We cried together on that expensive couch in my expensive apartment overlooking a city I'd conquered but couldn't seem to live in. 2 broken people who'd spent decades hurting each other without meaning to. When the tears finally stopped, Adrian spoke first. I need time. I need to process everything. The marriage, the trial, finding out my whole childhood was based on you hiding yourself from me. I need space to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to prove myself to a wife who was using me or rebelling against a mother I thought didn't care. I understand. But I don't want to lose you again. I can't. I've already lost too much. You won't, I promise. However much time you need, I'll be here. He stood to leave, stopped at the door. Mom? That letter. The part where you wrote about missing my school plays and feeling like you'd failed me as a mother? Yes?
You did fail in a lot of ways, but you also kept us alive when Dad died, built something from nothing, protected me from people who would have used me. And yeah, you went about it wrong, made mistakes, became someone I didn't recognize, but you did it because you loved me. I'm starting to understand that now.
After he left, I stood at the window for hours, watching the city, thinking about love and protection and the terrible choices we make when we're scared. The next morning, Rebecca found me at my desk at 6 a.m. Did you sleep at all? A little. Adrian came over last night. Her expression brightened. That's good. That's progress. Maybe. Or maybe it's just the eye of the storm before everything falls apart again. You always do this. Something good happens and you immediately catastrophize. I'm being realistic. You're being traumatized. There's a difference. She set coffee on my desk, sat down. Evelyn, can I say something you're not going to like? Have I ever stopped you before? You need therapy, professional help, someone to talk through all of this with. I'm fine. You're not fine. You just exposed your son's wife as a criminal, watched your relationship with him implode and maybe start to rebuild, and you're sitting here at 6 in the morning pretending to work because you don't know how to process emotions like a normal human being. I process emotions fine. You process emotions by building empires and destroying enemies. That's not processing. That's avoidance. I wanted to argue, wanted to tell her she was wrong, but she wasn't. I'll think about it. Good, because Adrian's not the only one who needs to heal here. She was right. I knew she was right, so I did something I'd never done before. I called a therapist. Dr. Sarah Chen's office was nothing like I expected. No leather couch, no intimidating degrees on the wall, just a comfortable room with soft lighting and a woman who looked at me like I was a person instead of a billionaire. Tell me what brought you here, she said. I told her everything. The wedding, Selena, the investigation, Adrian, the 32 years of hiding. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. That's a lot to carry. I've been carrying it fine. Have you? Because from what you've described, you've been surviving. That's not the same as being fine. What's the difference? Surviving is doing whatever it takes to get through the day. Being fine is actually living, building connections, trusting people, letting yourself be vulnerable. When's the last time you did any of those things? I couldn't answer. Your son is working through trauma from being conned by someone he loved. But Evelyn, you've been working through trauma since your husband died 32 years ago. You just never stopped to deal with it. You built an empire instead. Building the empire kept us alive. At first, yes, but at some point it became armor. Protection from ever having to trust anyone again, from ever having to risk being hurt. You convinced yourself you were protecting Adrian by hiding your wealth. But what you were really doing was protecting yourself from having to be honest with him, from having to risk him rejecting you if he knew the truth. The words hit like a physical blow. I never thought about it that way. Most people don't. Trauma responses feel like survival. They feel necessary, but they're often just walls we build to keep ourselves safe. And eventually, those walls don't just keep danger out. They keep everyone out. Over the next several weeks, I saw Dr. Chen twice a week. Unpacked 30 years of grief and fear and isolation. Learned that wealth hadn't corrupted me, but fear of losing it had. Learned that I'd been so busy protecting Adrian from external threats that I'd become a threat myself. Not intentionally, but absence hurts as much as presence sometimes. Learned that loving someone doesn't mean controlling them, or hiding from them, or manipulating them for their own good. It just means showing up, being honest, being present. All the things I'd failed to do. Adrian and I started meeting for coffee once a week. Neutral territory. Time limits? Safe. The first few meetings were awkward, stilted conversations about work and weather and nothing that mattered. But slowly, we started talking about real things. I'm seeing a therapist, he told me during our fourth coffee, trying to work through the Selena stuff. That's good. That's really good. She says I have trust issues. He laughed, but it was bitter. No kidding, right? My wife was a con artist and my mother hid her entire identity from me. Why would I have trust issues? I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am, genuinely. I know you are. That's what makes it so hard. If you were just a villain,
I could hate you and move on, but you're not. You're just a scared person who made bad choices while trying to do the right thing, and I can't figure out how to feel about that. You don't have to figure it out on a timeline. Take whatever time you need. My therapist says I need to learn to sit with ambiguity, that not everything has to be all good or all bad, that you can love someone and be angry at them simultaneously, that relationships are messy and complicated, and that's okay. Sounds like a smart therapist. She is. She also says I need to stop defining myself by my relationships, that I built my entire identity around being Selena's husband because I didn't know who I was on my own. And before that, I built my identity around being the son of a struggling single mother. Neither of those things were true, but they gave me a story to tell myself about who I was. And now I have to figure out who I actually am, without the wife, without the narrative, just me. 6 months after the trial, Adrian did something that shocked me. He asked to see the company. I want to understand what you built, not to join it or take it over, just to see it, to understand what consumes so much of your life. I gave him a tour, showed him the properties, the developments, the projects that had transformed neighborhoods, the housing programs for low-income families, the scholarship funds for kids who couldn't afford college. You did all this? He was standing in front of a community center we'd funded in Brooklyn. Kids playing basketball, families using the computer lab, seniors taking fitness classes. The money had to go somewhere. Might as well make it useful. This isn't just useful. This is, Mom, this is amazing. It's a tax write-off. Stop. Stop deflecting. Let me say something nice about you without you minimizing it. I closed my mouth. Let him continue. You built something that matters. Yes, you made mistakes with me. Yes, you prioritized wrong. But you also created something that's changing lives, that's giving people opportunities, that's making the world less terrible. I wish you'd been able to do that while also being present in my life, but I'm proud of you for what that's worth. It was worth everything. Adrian started coming to the office once a week after that, not to work, just to observe, learn, ask questions. I'm not saying I want to join the company, he told me carefully, but I think I want to understand it, understand UIS, see if there's a way I can contribute without losing myself in it. We created a role for him, special projects, focused on the community development side, the part that gave back instead of just taking profit. He was good at it, better than I expected. He had ideas I never would have thought of, perspectives from actually living in the world instead of just commanding it from a tower. And slowly, week by week, coffee by coffee, project by project, we started rebuilding. Not the relationship we'd had before. That was gone, couldn't be recovered. But something new, something honest, something built on truth instead of secrets. It wasn't perfect. We still fought, still hurt each other, still had days where the weight of everything that had happened felt too heavy to carry. But we were trying, and trying felt like progress. A year after Selena's sentencing, Adrian and I had dinner at my apartment. Real dinner, not coffee at a neutral location, not a business meeting, just dinner. I've been thinking about Dad, he said over dessert. Trying to remember him, but I can't. I was too young. He would have loved you, would have been so proud of who you've become. Tell me about him. The real stuff, not the sanitized version you used to tell me when I was a kid. So I did. I told him about his father's terrible jokes, his obsession with fixing things that weren't broken, the way he sang off-key in the shower, the fights we had about money and priorities and whose turn it was to change diapers. I told him about the fear when the cancer diagnosis came, the desperation of watching someone you love deteriorate, the guilt of sometimes wishing it would just be over because watching him suffer was unbearable. I told him the truth, messy and imperfect and human. I think I built the empire partially because I was so angry at him for dying, I admitted, for leaving us, for saddling us with debt and then not being there to help fix it. I know that's not fair. He didn't choose to get cancer, but grief isn't rational. No, it's not. I'm sorry I made you grow up without really knowing him, without really knowing me either. I'm sorry I spent so long resenting you for working so much when you were just trying to keep us alive. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, the kind of silence that only comes when you've said all the hard things and survived them. Mom, Adrian's voice was soft. I forgive you. I looked up. What? I forgive you. For the hiding, for the absence, for the manipulation with Selena. All of it. I don't forget. I don't pretend it didn't hurt, but I forgive you. Tears I'd been holding back for months finally fell. Thank you. That means more than you know. I know. But I need you to do something for me too. Anything. Forgive yourself. Stop carrying this guilt around like penance. You made mistakes. You've apologized. You're actively working to be different. At some point, you have to let yourself off the hook. I don't know how. Neither do I. But maybe we figure it out together. 2 years after the wedding, Adrian met someone new, a teacher named Maya, who had no idea who the Voss family was and didn't care when she found out. He brought her to dinner, asked my opinion, actually wanted to know what I thought. She's wonderful, I told him honestly. Smart, kind. She looks at you like you matter. She's nothing like Selena. Good. But I'm terrified. What if I'm wrong again? What if I can't see the warning signs? Then you'll deal with it. You'll trust yourself more this time. You'll communicate instead of hiding. And if it doesn't work out, you'll survive. Just like you survived Selena. What if I ask you to investigate her? I smiled. What if you just introduce me to her like a normal person and let me get to know her organically? That's fair. Maya was nothing like Selena. She was real, grounded. She called Adrian on his nonsense, challenged him, made him laugh. They got engaged 18 months later. Small ceremony. Family only. This time I sat in the front row, wore whatever color I wanted. And when the officiant asked if anyone objected, I smiled, because my son had found real love. The kind that doesn't need manipulation or lies or schemes. The kind that just shows up and stays. At the reception, Adrian pulled me aside. Thank you for saving me from Selena, for giving me space to heal, for being here now. Thank you for giving me another chance, for forgiving me when I didn't deserve it. We both made mistakes. The difference is we're both trying to do better. Is that enough? I think it has to be. We stood together watching Maya dance with her father, watching a celebration that was full of joy instead of manipulation. Mom? Adrian's voice was quiet. I know you hid your wealth to protect me, and I understand that now. But I need to ask, would you do it again? If you could go back, knowing everything that happened, would you still hide it? I thought about that, really thought about it. No, I said finally. I'd do it differently. I'd still protect you from predators, still teach you the value of building something yourself, but I'd do it with honesty, with trust, with the belief that you were strong enough to handle the truth. What changed? I did. You did. We both learned that love isn't about control. It's about showing up honestly and hoping the other person shows up too. That's terrifying. Yes, but it's also real, and real is better than safe. He hugged me, tight, the way he used to when he was small. I love you, Mom. Even with all the mess, even with all the mistakes. I love you. I love you too, sweetheart, more than I ever knew how to say. 5 years after the wedding that ended in mashed potatoes and federal charges, I stood in my office looking at a different view. Adrian had convinced me to relocate my headquarters to a building that overlooked the community center we'd built, the one that was changing lives. Rebecca knocked on the door. Your 4 o'clock is here. Already? Time flies. It does when you're actually enjoying your life instead of just surviving it. She wasn't wrong. The last 5 years had been the hardest of my life, harder than building the empire, harder than losing my husband, harder than any business deal or financial crisis. Because rebuilding a relationship is harder than building a building. There's no blueprint, no contractors, no guaranteed outcome. Just two people showing up imperfectly and hoping it's enough. Sometimes it wasn't enough. Sometimes Adrian and I still fought, still triggered each other's wounds, still fell back into old patterns of distance and resentment. But we'd learned to recognize it, call it out, apologize, try again. We'd learned that love isn't a feeling that happens to you. It's a choice you make every day, to show up, to be honest, to keep trying even when it's hard. My phone buzzed, a text from Adrian. Maya's pregnant. 3 months. You're going to be a grandmother.
I stared at those words and felt something crack open in my chest, something that had been frozen for decades. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. I texted back, "Congratulations! I'm so happy for you both." His response came immediately. "Think you can handle being a grandmother without investigating the baby for potential fraud?" I laughed out loud. "I make no promises." "Fair enough. Dinner this weekend? We want to tell you in person. I'll be there." I set the phone down and looked out at the community center, at the kids playing, at the families building lives. I'd spent 32 years thinking wealth was the thing I needed to protect my son from, thinking money corrupted everything it touched. But I'd been wrong. Money didn't corrupt. Fear did. Isolation did. Refusing to trust anyone did. Money was just a tool. It could build empires or destroy families, fund community centers or enable predators. What mattered was how you used it, and more importantly, who you let yourself become while accumulating it. I'd built an empire while losing my son. I'd exposed a criminal while almost destroying our relationship permanently. I'd protected him from external threats while becoming an internal one. But I'd also learned, changed, grown. And now at 64, I was finally learning how to be the mother I should have been all along. Not perfect, not without mistakes, but present, honest, real. Rebecca appeared in the doorway again. "You're smiling. What happened?" "Adrian and Maya are having a baby." Her face lit up. "Evelyn, that's wonderful." "I know. I'm terrified." "Of course you are. That's how you know it matters." She was right. Everything that mattered was terrifying. Love, trust, vulnerability, showing up without armor. But terror was better than emptiness. And real connection was worth every terrifying moment. That weekend at dinner with Adrian and Maya, I made a decision. I want to set up a trust for the baby, not a massive one, just enough to cover education, medical emergencies, a down payment on a first home. And I want to tell you about it now. No secrets, no hiding. Adrian looked surprised. "You don't have to do that." "I know, but I want to. And more importantly, I want to do it the right way this time, with transparency, with trust." What changed? Everything. Nothing. Me, I suppose. I looked at both of them. I spent 30 years thinking secrets kept people safe, but secrets just kept people apart. I don't want that with your child. I want to be present, involved, honest, even when it's uncomfortable. Maya reached across the table and took my hand. "We'd like that. And Evelyn? For what it's worth, Adrian's told me everything. About Selena, about the hiding, about all of it. And I think what you did took incredible courage. Courage would have been being honest from the start. Maybe. Or maybe courage is admitting you were wrong and doing the hard work to fix it. Not everyone does that. Most people just double down on their mistakes." I looked at my son, at the man he'd become despite my failures and because of my protection. Both things could be true simultaneously. "Thank you," I told them both, "for giving me another chance, for letting me be part of this." "Your family," Adrian said simply. "That's what family does." And for the first time in 3 decades, I understood what that meant. Not controlling, not manipulating, not hiding or protecting or orchestrating from the shadows, just showing up, being present, loving imperfectly but honestly. That was family. 8 months later, I held my granddaughter for the first time. Emma Rose Voss. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Perfect. "She has your eyes," Maya said softly. "Poor thing," I joked, but my voice cracked. Adrian stood next to me, watching me hold his daughter. "You okay, Mom?" "More than okay." I looked at him. "Thank you for this, for letting me be here." "Where else would you be?" "A year ago, probably at the office, burying myself in work, keeping distance, protecting myself from feeling too much. And now? Now I'm here, holding my granddaughter, learning that the scariest thing in the world is also the most beautiful thing." "What's that?" "Letting yourself love people without trying to control the outcome. Just loving them and hoping it's enough." Adrian's eyes filled with tears. "It is enough, Mom. You are enough. You've always been enough. We just both needed time to figure that out." I looked down at Emma, at this tiny person who would grow up in a world I'd helped build,
Who would know her grandmother not as a distant billionaire or a cautionary tale, but as a flawed human being who made terrible mistakes and learned from them? Who would understand that wealth doesn't make you happy? Connection does. Trust does. Love does. Who would learn that sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones trying hardest to protect us? And that forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's choosing to move forward anyway. Who would know that her great-grandfather died young and her grandmother built an empire from grief and fear, but also that her grandmother eventually learned to put down that armor and just be present? I'm going to mess this up too, I told Adrian quietly. Being a grandmother. I'll probably overstep and try to control things and revert to old patterns. Probably, he agreed. But the difference is now you recognize it, and we can talk about it, and we'll figure it out together. Together. I like the sound of that. Me too. We stood there in that hospital room, 3 generations of Voss family, and I finally understood something that had taken me 64 years to learn. Love isn't about being perfect. It's not about never making mistakes or never hurting the people you care about. It's about showing up anyway, apologizing when you're wrong, learning, growing, trying again. It's about choosing connection over control, vulnerability over protection, truth over comfortable lies. And sometimes love looks like mashed potatoes being thrown in your face at a wedding, like FBI raids and trials and destroyed relationships. Sometimes love is ugly and painful and costs everything you thought mattered. But on the other side of that pain, if you're lucky enough and brave enough to walk through it, you find something real. You find family, not the picture-perfect version, the messy, complicated, imperfect version that shows up and stays even when it's hard. And that is worth more than any empire I could ever build. I looked at my son holding his daughter, at Maya watching them both with exhausted joy, at the life they were building together based on honesty and trust and real love. And I smiled, because I'd spent 32 years being the villain in my son's story, thinking I was the hero. But it turned out I was neither. I was just a woman who loved her son badly and learned to love him better, who made catastrophic mistakes and somehow got the chance to repair them, who built an empire but almost lost what mattered most, who finally learned that the greatest wealth isn't measured in billions. It's measured in moments like this one, in second chances and honest conversations and tiny hands wrapped around your finger, in family who sees all your flaws and loves you anyway, in showing up imperfectly, but showing up none.